Well, Andy, thank you for you and AWS's support for the summit. It's great to have you back. And,
thank you. Great to be back.
Well, it's fantastic. I remember years ago we had your now CEO here, and over the years, a number of your execs, and AWS kind of came out of its own stealth mode over a decade ago and probably became one of the world's largest tech company. And you've been there the whole time, 26 years. There's only a couple dozen people have been there that long, and you've gone from about $2 billion in market cap to $2 trillion. How much of that is attributed to your wit and wisdom?
Probably most.
That's what I think.
If I'm honest.
The thing I like about it too is the humility. Yeah. No, it's a remarkable organization in so many ways, but there's also a cohort of people that have been there for a long period of time that have just seen this thing evolve in ways that I think perhaps only a handful could have envisioned. And Jeff was making strategic moves very early on for things that might be important 10 years later.
Yeah.
And it was, just been an incredible run.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about, you and I talked about this before, but when we acquired IMDb, which is not a Gen AI company, but now leverages some Gen AI technology and is well known, I joined 4 months after that, but if you think about why we did it, and this goes to that strategic point, we didn't have a way to launch movies with the filmography. You had a bibliography, books and print, Library of Congress, you didn't have a filmography. And nobody knew why. Nobody even knew that we bought IMDb, but this is one of those early Jeff decisions that then could power a product line that didn't even emerge until, a year and a half after.
And then you really virtually launched the podcasting business with Audible, right?
And again, that wasn't even the first book, audiobook company we bought. We bought Brilliance Publishing before that, and they were the biggest audiobook distributor.
Yeah, but then kind of Audible made it easy to use. The Dummies books, those?
Yeah.
I was at the first Trump inauguration. There's this fellow there, Brad, who was Trump's digital media guru, and they credited him with the election results. And I asked him how he got into it. He bought Internet for Dummies. And then he wrote Trump a letter telling him how he could help him with his hotels. And then he helped him with the hotels. And then Trump said, maybe you could help me with the election. And he didn't really know much about the internet, but he discovered that you could go to Google and Facebook, and they would assign people to work for you, and they'd pay their salaries. So he got about 150 volunteers from these top tech companies, and it didn't cost him a penny. And they really outperformed Clinton on social media. And I had somebody whose only real experience is reading
Internet
book. Internet for Dummies. I mean, you just can't make this stuff up. But anyway,
I hope you bought it on Amazon.
I'm sure he did. But anyway, more back to AWS. John Jones had a family, passing this week, and he couldn't be here. But John's moved over to run the startup ecosystem. He had a big job in go-to-market, and seemed like kind of a sideways move, but. The AWS has put billions of dollars behind the startups. Maybe just with our introduction, you can talk about maybe what you and John Jones and the team is doing in the startups, because then we're going to talk a little bit about how we work together with startups, and then we're going to bring up 3 outstanding companies that are working with AWS. So we'll have about 10, 15 minutes of this, and then you get to hear the really good entrepreneurs. That's why we have a couple extra chairs here. So tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing.
When we think about go-to-market, which is, I was with John in go-to-market as well, and in that org, and go-to-market, the way John led that org was very much like a dynamic go-to-market. It wasn't just simply going out and slinging hash and selling software, selling solutions. It was very much about how we Amazon's very focused from a cultural perspective, and I know that's part of our topic, on this idea of a mechanism, and the mechanism has to have kind of a feedback piece to it. It's a closed loop with feedback entering, so that you're constantly modifying and tweaking the formula. And go-to-market in this formulation really relies on our startup customers, or any customer really, to give us feedback at the service level And we can take that feedback in the old org, in the go-to-market org, and we can formulate what a customer needs for a revision of that product or even a new service. That's where almost every one of these services that AWS runs has come from.
Yeah.
This sort of kind of feedback loop. And so when we moved over to startups, it was a great way to take that idea and that culture around that mechanism and that sort of go-to-market dynamism and sort of, I don't want to say overlay it, but institute it into the startups org. And again, our startups were giving us plenty of feedback before. I just think John, from a cultural perspective, is much more, and I help him with this, we try very hard to both capture and respond to that kind of feedback, those kind of needs at like startup speed, right?
Yeah.
Startup speed is that. It's not what we call we do a lot of writing at AWS and at Amazon, so it's not a lot of narratives. Narratives can take a long time to write and put in front of another team.
Even if they're only a page long.
And a page long is really hard to do, by the way. 6 pages is our maximum length, if nobody knows this, is a 6-page narrative with up to 30 pages, up to 24 more pages of appendices, and we get a lot of those. But the bigger challenge is a 1-pager.
Yeah.
And so even if you bring that 1-pager with some product feature requests, that takes a long time to get those things instituted. Startups need things that are faster
Well, speed's the only advantage you have when you're a startup. You don't have the resources. So let's talk about velocity. We founded March Capital about 11 years ago now. We've built about 25 big positions. Almost all of them are hosted on AWS. Now, it's obvious now, but at the time, we said, well, we're going to do only cloud software. We're going to partner, work with AWS. AWS, no one really knew what it was at the time. The second part of the relationship.
Easy to spell, though.
Yeah, easy to spell, AWS. And then the second phase was, well, go-to-market partnerships. CrowdStrike's the great example. They do over $1 billion of revenue through AWS. And the first time we did it, a couple, 2 years in or so, it was credits, and people were buying the software on the weekends and the evenings using credits through the AWS store. We thought, geez, all the salespeople were fighting over who gets credit for it. I once met that person somewhere. Come on, they went to AWS and bought it, and then AWS incentivized its sales force, $1 billion of revenue. You valued it 20 times revenue. What's that worth you? 25 billion? I mean, it's amazing, right? And then we have other companies working with you now, Forder, ASAP. The third phase of our relationship now is with this high velocity startups, is in this Gen AI, high velocity startups. And we're going to have a showcase today at lunchtime of a number of these companies. We looked at dozens together with you. We have about a dozen here today. You'll hear 6 or 8 of them today at lunchtime, and we have 3 here this morning. And it's, for us, it's just a great partnership because we look at companies and we can provide the capital and the mentoring and the coaching, and they, you provide the technical capabilities and whatnot. And the real goal there is to build with velocity and solve real problems quickly and iterate. And so for us, it's a very exciting partnership, and it truly is a partnership. You have to work at it, spend a lot of time together, and there's some things that work better than others, but it's a really important for us, and it's great to have you here. I know, John, and you wanted to talk about, entrepreneurs. Should we segue into kind
of? Yeah, because I want to come back to one thing you just said, like the mentoring, the coaching, you have a very unique position as one of those mentors, coaches. My colleagues.
He's telling me I'm old.
No. My colleagues and I too think of you as very much like and I don't mean this pejoratively, but as like a psychologist, and you're really looking at how investing returns is linked to your founders, who they are, how they behave, and it brings up the question of like special talents. What do you look for?
Yeah. Well, I'm honored for that comment. I think I've had people tell me I should go see a psychologist. No one ever referred to me as one, but All right, that was a laugh line. Come on, guys. We're dealing with humans, and you listen to McKinsey yesterday. They were talking about the deployment of AI. You're dealing with human behavior. We're building companies. We're dealing with human motivation, human objectives, human challenges, human growth opportunities, and by the end of the day, you try and. Sometimes we'll spend a couple of years getting to know a company before we invest, and usually the conversation starts with kind of not just what they're doing, but why they're doing it, and trying to understand how they got to that point in life, and what would they really like to accomplish, and for us, and Eleanor's will be on the follow-up session. I went over to London and spent a couple of days with her. And I said, I remember, Eleanor, you probably remember this conversation. I said, Eleanor, this is about your success, not my success. We've been successful, and we want to understand what it would take for us to help you be successful, right? And in terms of your role here, the ownership, how you run the place, who you need to have around you to be successful, what value add we could have. And I think it's important as an investor to put yourself in that mindset. It's about the entrepreneur and their company and their success. And I think we've been successful as an entity, March Capital, but it's maybe we've been successful because that wasn't what we were always aiming for. We're always aiming for our entrepreneurs to be successful. And if they're successful, we're successful. And if some funds are so eager to be successful themselves, that maybe doesn't end well. And so I made some notes, expecting this question. And I think the first one is a mission orientation and staying true to the mission. And you'll hear that today from the three entrepreneurs, that they have a clear idea. And if you have a clear idea of your mission, you're able to attract talent that will also see that or embrace that vision. I think we have to, the entrepreneurs and the board, we have to have a humility, and Ron Sugar spoke about that yesterday on the panel on mentoring and coaching, and respect for your employees, your customers, your business partners, and not have the answer to every question, and really, approach. You have to have confidence, but you can be humble and have confidence. And you got to build the company for the long term, and for the customer. You notice what I just said? You got to build the company for the long term and not the customer. Now, you have to respect the capital, but it's not all about the investor. It's not about me. I don't want to make your inbox any higher or your day any longer. We want you to be able to focus on the long term and solving real problems. And we want entrepreneurs who can stay true to that. And then we want entrepreneurs who can constantly reflect, learn, and improve. And that's so important. And I think in life, if you have continual learning and you surround yourself with good people, those are two very important factors for success. And then an unwavering support from their family, their spouse, their partner, whoever, that what they're doing is usually a really challenge. To go do what our entrepreneurs have done, it's really hard, right?
Yeah.
To build companies that are worth billions or tens of billions or hundreds of billions of dollars, and there's a lot of that the teams give up. And obviously we've probably had, any of us who've been successful had to sacrifice a lot to get there. It's not easy, but we have to understand that, and they have to, you have to sense that there's an unwavering support. They're really signing up for this, and so what didn't I talk about? You know, most people come in and talk about product market fit and TAM. I didn't talk about any of that, did I? Okay, well, that we'll get to that. But this is what's really, if you look at who's really been successful, those are the characteristics. And so what do we do when we spend time with them? Why does it take us a couple years? Well, maybe it's too early for us, or we're not smart enough to figure it out, or things are moving too quickly, or we're not comfortable yet on how the person makes decisions. So sometimes it takes us longer to get there. There's always another bite of the apple. Companies do well, they need more money. They don't do well, they need more money too. That's a different story. But and so these are some of the things that we look at. And I think if you're consistent to those attributes, you're able to have a set of values that resonate with a great firm like AWS. I think all of our partnership and time we spend together is about those same issues applied in AWS and their culture and the importance that your colleagues have with their families. If somebody has a family issue, we'll be there, or they need some help with something, we'll be there for them. And that's first and foremost. So we'll always get the business done, right?
Yeah.
But so these are some of the things we look for.
But getting the business done, and I know this is a core idea that we've talked about. This idea of and this goes back to our feedback mechanisms, go-to-market, et cetera. It's different than just revenue. It's not as simple as just revenue.
No.
It's like a sustainable, the phrase sustainable value creation is critical. And every one of those elements you mentioned, like you said at the end, has culture woven through it, right?
Yeah,
has
culture
woven through it, values, et cetera. Those are all just proxies for culture. And I just think about how you see those things feeding into sustainable value creation.
Well, I think I touched on it a bit. And now we have three good examples with, I'm going to ask Tani to introduce them. These are the smarter, better looking, more intelligent additions to the panel. So I'll excuse myself and leave you with them. Andy,
Excellent.
Thank you for your support and AWS's support. And we look forward to many years of partnership to come.
Yeah, me too.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Aditya Bindal, Ali Aga, and Eleanor Lightbody.
Hi, Eleanor. Great to see you. Aditya, great to see you. Ali, great to see you. All right. I have a new piece of paper.
Great.
All right, thank you, all of you, for being here. And thank you, everybody, for being here, too. As John said, you could see the change from John Jones to me as leading this conversation, or these conversations. I didn't ever say that. I work directly for John. I handle his kind of, we'll use the loose phrase, right-hand man. So we'll use that one. So, but now that I've introduced myself in just that one extra sentence, I want to have each of you introduce yourselves and just tell us a little bit about you and the company that you run. Like, it doesn't have to be like the whole prospectus, but you know what I mean. So Eleanor, why don't we start with you?
Hi, everyone. I'm Eleanor, and I'm CEO of Luminance. So for those of you who don't know what Luminance does, we are an AI company that helps enterprises, organizations of any size with any of their interactions with their legal contracts. So if you think about it, every single company in the world, every single second is probably reviewing a contract, deciding what to do with that contract, and then sending it somewhere. And at Luminance, we're automating this end to end. So our AI helps businesses both create contracts, negotiate contracts, and then finding key information within their contracts. I'm quite excited for today's panel. And I think one of the things that's quite exciting for me is that I joined Luminance 6 years into its journey. So when we talk about culture, it's something that I feel very strongly about. And we'll get to that, I think, a bit later.
Yeah, that's great. Aditya?
Excellent. My name is Aditya Bindal. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Contextual AI. So for those of you who don't know Contextual AI, we have a platform where enterprises build specialized RAG agents. So if you think about developers today that are trying to build with language models and build these agentic systems into their enterprises, there's a lot of pain points from every point in that journey, right? Understanding what's in your unstructured data, connecting to different structured data sources, being able to retrieve and re-rank the most relevant information, and then giving a very grounded and faithful response based on your data and not hallucinating based on what the model might have seen somewhere in Reddit or Wikipedia. And so we have customers in production that are using us on some of the hardest problems. Our company has deep research roots, so our CEO and founder, Dow Keeler, invented RAG when he was at Facebook AI Research, and so now we're building really the next generation of the technology and the platform on top. And I'm super excited to be here because I was at AWS AI before, so building a lot of the foundational pieces in the deep learning LLM space that are now part of offerings like SageMaker and Bedrock. But culturally, we've shamelessly copied from AWS, word for word in some cases, so this will be a fun discussion.
Thank you for that. Ali?
I'm Ali. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO at Field AI. Our focus is to bring AI to the physical world, to the robots, to be specific. We build foundation models and brains that are robot agnostic. They're going on humanoids, four-legged robots, wheeled platforms, drones. That's a unique aspect of the type of model that we are building. And the focus of the company is to enable the models to be safe and reliable. And as a result, you can transfer them across different and millions of environments without needing a prior knowledge about the environments, no predefined trajectories, no prior maps, and so on. But yeah, we'll go a little bit deeper on that, and super excited to be here and talk a little bit about.
Super glad to have you. And I love the phrase, one of the great phrases, bringing certainty to uncertainty, right? You're embracing uncertainty. I just love that. Aditya knows this, and maybe I'm just spouting things that everybody knows, but we have a big deals with ambiguity type of thing at AWS and at Amazon. Over the years, I've encountered that many times, that need to embrace uncertainty. I'm not a robot, but at the same time, I love that concept that is all over your branding and not so much your branding, but your operations. Okay, good. So what I wanted to ask each of you, because this idea, the general idea of what we're talking about is culture, right? And so what I wanted to ask each of you was, in a way, and I know that this is probably not the simplest question, but what sets each of your companies apart? And I don't mean against competitors. I just mean what makes your company unique. And I want to give you some parameters, like the product and the idea, or the execution, or the culture. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And we can start anywhere.
Go ahead.
So, look, it starts with an idea, doesn't it? But an idea is just an idea. You have to execute on that idea. And so whether it's the product that you build on top of that idea, or whether it's the team that you build to deliver that product and to deliver your go-to-market strategy, I think they're both equally as important. And so I think in today's age, building that team around the product is absolutely key, and understanding what you stand for and how you think about things slightly differently. So something that we do at Luminance, which is slightly different to maybe the way that others think, is we love to hire young talent. Like, we actively go and hire straight out of university. And so all of our developers are based in Cambridge, and we hire straight from the University of Cambridge. We have, of course, a few people with experience so that they can help guide and mentor them. But for us, that raw talent, that raw energy, that creativity, they haven't been necessarily scarred with the years that we've all gone through. If we can harness that I think is really exciting.
That's great. Okay, let's go through, because I have a follow-up on that, but because I love that idea. Aditya?
I think in some ways, if we go like a 5 whys and root cause it is ultimately culture and intrinsic motivation for us. So in our space, one of the challenges every company faces, and we saw this in AWS as well, as you might remember, is you have a research team, and then you have a product and engineering team. And the intrinsic motivation for folks in those teams are extremely different. And then you have this interface and handshake, like, can you guys think about this? Can you work on these problems? Because we heard something from a customer. One of the things that I think we've done quite uniquely is that distinction doesn't exist, right? So the research team is the product team is the research team. And they are motivated by the same things. So that allows us to really see the space and think about problems very differently. And the hard part of that is to also motivate very smart ML researchers that could be working on any number of problems in fabulous labs and companies around the world to really care about these very complex enterprise domains and use cases that don't get attention from the top research labs. And I think that doesn't come from product or prioritization. It just comes from culture and intrinsic motivation.
I love that. Well, and Jamie mentioned mission orientation, so it maps well with that, but I know it's not probably that linear, that mission orientation. There's other elements to it, yeah. All right, Ali?
Yeah, you mentioned product, execution, and culture.
Yeah.
In my mind, I think they're very difficult to separate them from each other. You need a good product and vision to be able to fuel the culture, right? People come excited about their mission every day, wake up, come to the company. Execution also matters massively, because even if you have a good idea and mission and great culture, but if things don't move fast enough, people start losing motivation. You want to be always at the edge of what you're doing. And of course, the culture is the pillar, right? You want to have the right resilience within the team, because it's a startup, there will be inevitably lots of ups and downs. And to be able to go through those, navigate those, you need that resilience baked in. So in terms of like what differentiates, I think hard to separate and point to one of these to be the main differentiator. I think the connection and that integrated sort of framework across all the three is what differentiates a company from the ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like I hear all three of you saying that, and I don't disagree. Like they all are, I don't think they're like simultaneous. They're almost in an instant flash. They have to be all together. But what I wonder, and this is what I wanted to come back to with younger talent, is as they come into the company and you give them a mission, and then, so to speak, and the number of inputs they have in the age of Gen AI, do you struggle with getting them to buy into that? And I'm saying mission, you could use vision. I'm just trying to think about, do they kind of roll their eyes and go, yeah, I'll be here for 2 years and then I'm on my way?
It's a very good question. And I think when I first joined Luminance, definitely in the development team, we've had a bit of a turnover. And so something that we did that to this day has worked so well, and it's slightly similar to your initiative, which is we got the developers to start sitting in on customer meetings. And so they weren't then just working in isolation. They weren't just building this product and thinking, okay, well, I'm just going to ship it off and I have no idea what the value is to the end user. We got them to go into a physical room with people to see what the customers and how the customers were using, to see live feedback. And suddenly, overnight, it changed everything. They could see why we were doing what we were doing. And that was for us, it really worked in changing that culture of, okay, I'm just here for a few years and then I want to go somewhere else, to like, I totally get why we're driving this. And we did that with sales as well. There's a bit of a theme here. We hire quite young in different departments. And sales teams, what we did is, they've obviously got a process that they follow. They're typically graduates, but we matched them with they get to see the success of people that have been at the company for 2 years or 3 years. And that contrast when you're building a business, I think is absolutely key. And I think you've got to have these people that you put on pedestals, that people come in and they're like, oh my gosh, I want to be that like developer. I want to be that like salesperson. And it gets them motivated and it gets them turning up day in, day out because they can see what success looks like. And it goes back to hiring, make sure that you're hiring the right people. But if you hire the right people, that will just be the fuel to the fire.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, we obviously, Aditya, the hire and develop the best. We have leadership principles at Amazon, so if I sound like I'm reading from that playbook, it's because I've lived them for so long, or I was there before we even developed them. But hire and develop the best is one of our concepts, and it really does take that. It's iterative, let's just call it. It's iterative, and it sounds like it is for you too. Yeah. Aditya, you were talking about like you've combined this research and this execution function, and does Gen AI change how you think about, and there's still a productivity metric somewhere in there. Does Gen AI change any of that, or is it kind of what Eleanor said, where each can see into the other's world and think like, this is brilliant?
I think it does change it, and we've been trying to be a little bit more deliberate about that. So in the early days when we were small enough, like just 10, 20 of us, we internalized it. So the way we operated was really the values of the company. Now when we're about 80 people, you need to have mechanisms to use that word again. So we've started to rethink and kind of redefine what does it mean to be in product and engineering and research. So as a quick example of that, PMs typically would spend a lot of time with spec writing and prioritization, cross-functional alignments, but not at contextual. So at contextual, like the PMs are actually writing eval sets. Because if you want to influence what the product does and you say the model should output something that handles these types of recency bias questions correctly, P0, it's really important, please do that. Like there's no way to actually translate that and make the research team truly understand. So if you go to like the Amazon mechanism of doing the press release and working backwards, well, I think the AI version of that is you have the eval and you work backwards from the capabilities you want to see. And so we like the whole team to actually be very hands-on and be kind of one with the data, to use Karpathy's phrase, and be able to work backwards from the model capabilities, the system capabilities that you want to see. And then like your vibes are actually one of the most useful assets that you have for the company.
It's great. I love that. Ali, is it similar? Is this sort of outlay similar to how you're operating? And because we just talked about like culture is so vital to, and by the way, as background, your team has worked together, the majority of your team has worked together very closely for a while, right?
Yeah, I think we have been, our sort of genesis story was a bit unique, and I've been very fortunate that we have a core part of our team we have worked for years together, and through very intense and flagship projects, including DARPA challenges that take you through lots of interesting journey. And we have shared a lot of institutions from DeepMind to NASA to Tesla and so on. And that helped the initial core team, the first 20, 30 people, to be very well glued to each other. And that has been a huge asset for us, that not only sort of people know each other culturally very well and can work very efficiently with each other, and the vision is aligned, but through the network that sort of trickles to the other layers, right? And that sort of helps us as we are growing and reaching like 3-digit size team. We still are going with the network and people that we know and align with the vision and so on. And moving beyond that would be a set of principles that can filter people. But back to what sort of Eleanor was mentioning, I think to align people, newer people that are joining with the mission and the vision, I would say like there are two main elements there. One is to making sure the long-term vision and them seeing that this is going to scale, how it's going to scale, and how this is a vision that is going to be sustainable is extremely critical, especially when you're hiring the rare top talent. And the second part is exactly as you all mentioned, is connecting what we are doing to the customer needs and them feeling the impact, right? Going to the deployment, seeing how customer gets happy and gets the value out of this, energizes would be the dopamine hit for the team, and that's one thing that keeps our team, every day motivated, moving forward faster and faster to make the deployments scale more and more for the customers.
And that's key. I love that idea. I mean, this is something that everyone kind of knows from our earliest days at Amazon. Jeff Bezos, like customer obsession is the point. That's what we're day in and day out obsessed with. The customers have changed, right? AWS is a different customer set than me waiting at the door for a box to be delivered. So those are different customers over the years we've developed. But Ali, on that front with the customers you're seeing, you do, like Jamie and I talked just a few minutes ago about sustainable value creation. You can see what the customers value. I assume your team, and I don't mean to make a bad assumption, but I assume your team is thinking about not so much, let's deliver this, cut the check, collect it, that they're looking more for that long term, where are we going 5 steps down the road?
100%. And that's really baked into the formation and start of the company as well, that what really enables us to scale, right? That's really the point of the nature or the type of startup that we are building. And when you think about that, it's all about the customer, right? That's how we start. We go and try to deeply understand, if we are building this product, it will go to millions of robots. This product will go to tens of millions of robots, right? And so one of those observations that we had early days is the architecture that we are building, we can't, and this is where I'm saying the culture and idea and execution all are very intertwined, right? The architecture that we are building cannot be just take large LLMs from word and language world and bring to robotics, because that's not what is customer wants. That's not what is going to scale, right? Customer in our field wants reliability in the field. They want the system to go from one environment to another environment effortlessly. You can't spend weeks to retrain in a new environment. You want agnosticism to the robot body, because every task, every use case would be different. And when you take a step back and thinking about what is the sustainable value creation, what's going to keep paying back for decades, right? It comes back and deeply changes the initial architecture and technology as well. And that's where, when you start there and when you bring some of these talents from DeepMinds and Metas and OpenAIs of the world, and they see, oh, okay, this architecture is different than what we have seen, and it's something built and baked for this domain, it makes it much easier to not only attract and be a magnet, but also build that alignment around the vision and mission of the company.
And I wonder too about, Eleanor, legal contracts. They change over time, but they don't change that dramatically over time, do they?
Depends on the use case.
And as they're changing, is what you're, do you face a challenge with you're going to go horizontally wider and vertically deeper in every instance as you go horizontally wider, because you're going to scale to multiple customers, et cetera, et cetera?
So if you look at the split of our customer base, it's really interesting. We have an even split between all different industries. And so, as you said, we're kind of a vertical application of specialist AI for the legal domain, but really we can work with businesses of all different sizes. Our smallest customer is probably a 2-man hedge fund, and our largest customers are the likes of AMD or DHL. And I think the point around value is a really, really important point for customers. When we first started going to market with our platform, rather than calling it a proof of concept, we were like, hang on, we've got customers. We're not going to call it a proof of concept. We don't need to prove the concept to anyone, or to ourselves at least. We need to prove each customer the value. Mm-hmm. So when someone trials our product, and they can trial it for free for 2 weeks at any point, they trial it and we call it a proof of value. And from day one, we're setting the expectations ourselves and to the end buyer, which is, we need to prove value for you. And you're not going to buy something if you're not seeing whether it's time savings, cost savings, whether it's identifying key risks, whatever it might be. And that value starts from day one, when you're having that first initial conversation, and then it extends all the way through. And so, great, you get a customer, but what happens after that? How can you continuously deliver value, and you can expand throughout organizations? Because what we do actually is more broader than just legal contracts. It's really wherever, any document. But that's how we think about value for our customers.
Yeah, I wonder about that, because it's like there's the binary question: did this create value for your customer? And that's not that interesting, is it? I mean, it is interesting, but there's the, like, Aditya, I don't know about with contextual, is how did this create value? Or you can witness it, I suppose, and say, your team could say, oh yeah, I created value for this customer, but the validation of that over time, and the vision of what the customer sees as value over time, do you have a capture mechanism for that? Or is it, at this point, you're taking notes?
No, I think an important nuance, and this is another phrase that we borrowed from Amazon, is this concept of a flywheel in AI. Because I think there's very few models or applications out there that will give you the full realization of value that you will eventually have with the system. So you want to see proof of value immediately, so I think we do the same thing. But then the long-term value you get is from investing in that foundation where you have a data flywheel, where more people are using it, generating more error signal that you can back propagate and use to improve different parts of the entire agentic stack. And then you make that better and better, which allows you to scale it out more, take bigger risks, and that generates more data. So that flywheel, I think, is really important because in 2 years from now, 5 years from now, what you'll end up with is a very specialized capability that you can now scale. So you want to start investing in that compounding now. So we try and frame the value in terms of short term, like you get the cost saving or some new revenue opportunity or net promoter score, but then you're also getting this innovation optionality. And that's going to be differentiating because everyone in your industry will be calling Claude ChatGPT. What is the specialized intelligence for your domain, for your company that you're really building?
And I would imagine that innovation potential over time helps excite all of the teams. I mean, I know it sounds kind of cliched, but at the same time, that innovation potential is really the energy that keeps your teams engaged. Is that accurate? I mean, I saw, Ali, I told you this morning, I was watching your DARPA challenge video where your team won. And I could see that being quite motivating. But you don't get that every day, do you?
Yeah, no, definitely I think the innovation is key, the backbone. And in the domains, I think all of 3 of our companies are in, extremely important to make sure we are staying at the cutting edge. And again, connecting it to the culture, you're basically, I'm grossly oversimplifying, but you're hiring 2 types of sort of group and talent, some to keep you at the cutting edge of that innovation, keep inventing and innovating and making sure that we are at the edge, and then you're having people that are making sure on a day-to-day with customers the product is maturing and delivering value and all that, and keeping the link between these 2 is incredibly important. As Aditya was saying, having that vision in the company that deep tech people understand that what they're developing, how they're in every day getting polished with the product people and adds value, and have that flow of information back from customer for them to stay on the mission and excited while they're developing something that maybe is 6 months, year, 2 years ahead of the rest of the company. And at the same time, making sure that the product team does not fall into a local minima, doesn't get into this incremental mindset that, hey, I win for the next few months, I get a little bit of a land grab of market, but then come and gets washed.
Global maxima versus,
right?
Yeah.
And that's, I think, is a very delicate balance, and especially for companies that are at the cutting edge of AI, especially like for us, when we are bringing AI to the physical world, which the market is incredibly massive, right? Like the largest ever in human history, but it's at the early stages of this development and proving and customers understanding the value and all that is extremely critical to build that gap. But in short, basically, the innovation piece is extremely critical to keep it alive and going.
I love that. How vital for all of you or for each of you is there's a tension there, right? There's the day-to-day operation and there's the, go long, like really, let's do something crazy. How vital is that tension in your organizations? And I don't mean tension in a bad way. I mean like, we've got to pull in opposite directions in some regards to make forward progress. How vital is that tension?
I think it's one of the most important things.
What's that?
I think it's one of the most important things. I think, look, we're building a world in which AI will be negotiating against AI. And if we never have to look at an NDA, for example, great. But that's slightly further away. And then you also need to provide value today. So how do you manage that tension? And it's push and pull. There's a bit of give and take. And it's keeping people kind of grounded in reality today, whilst also thinking about, right, we're doing something fundamentally different. How do we get there? And how do we get there faster than anyone else?
Yeah.
I think one of the hard things in AI for a lot of our customers as well is knowing what's easy, what's hard, what's plannable, and what's worth just trying it out and seeing if it works. And what makes that tension a little bit more challenging compared to other domains or technologies is you might decide that this is a really important problem to solve, but there is actually no solution. Like, you need to do fundamental research. There's some missing groundwork before you can even attempt it. And I think distinguishing those is in some ways more important than the trade-offs or the tension. Once you get to the point where you understand what is a long-term bet, what is a short-term bet based on capabilities, you can make the trade-offs in different ways. But I think the hard part for us, and sometimes companies as well, is in this space, what actually requires more fundamental work that requires invention.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I mean, that obviously the day-to-day, you brought this up, the day-to-day people can sometimes win in this scenario. Like, you can't do that. It's going to ruin the day-to-day, and you have to manage that.
And I think for us also, it's very important to have the right lens to look at attention. We actually welcome it. We enjoy it. If you don't have a little bit of attention, that means probably you're not moving fast enough or you're not pushing, right? That's just by definition, a startup should have some level of healthy tension, not too much to break, but it's very important to enjoy that rather than see it as a challenge and try to fix it. It's like, okay, this is actually what we are here together for, and that's what we are pushing for. And if we are not, pushing on the speed and quality and so on to the level that we are all get a little bit of uncomfortable, then we are probably better to go work for a bigger company that would be very, very comfortable doing, and you won't get the speed that you're getting. So I think that perspective also makes it very, I would say, not a challenge, but in fact a necessity part, and part that you come to every day and enjoy going through that.
Yeah, as Aditya knows, we've built lots of our leadership principles that I mentioned. You could look these things up if you don't know them. There's 16 of them. Each of them is in tension with another. So if you're delivering too many results, you might not be, pricing things correctly, right? We might need to look at our approach there. And so what you want is, or you might be delivering something that's too fast. So you want to insist on highest standard. That's another one. And so they pull against each other. I like that. And it sounds like that is validated. I mean, Aditya, you know this because you were at AWS, but by each of your observations. Okay, we have only a little bit of time left. I always love to ask for hot takes on what's happening now, either in Gen AI or in corporate culture. So anybody have a hot take they want to share?
I suppose I'm not sure how original this is, but it's something that I do really believe in, which is if you haven't started implementing AI now in your organization, you might be very behind the times. And so I don't think AI is going to totally replace our world or our jobs. It will replace those that aren't embracing it. And every single leader of a business, every single person that's in a business, go and find how you can deploy it in a meaningful manner.
I like that.
I mean, maybe not a hot take, but I think with the test time compute scaling paradigm, all the things we saw with O1 and DeepSeek, I think there's going to be a really big shift in how much return you get on verticalization, because now the model is able to unroll and plan and choose different trajectories. And we found some early signs that a lot of the vertical specific work that would go into post-processing from these big models can now be kind of automated through this test time compute scaling paradigm. So how that shifts kind of value and where people spend effort, where people spend time, I think we haven't started seeing that as yet, but that might be a really big shift.
Got to be quick on your feet in that regard too, huh?
Yeah,
Change
exactly.
direction. Ali?
Yeah, I would say sort of we had the age of electronics and internet and cell phone connectivity, deep learning, and so on. I see next 2 to 3 decades, honestly, I don't see an end to it, are going to be the mobility decades for humanity and society. Everything that, not the machines that move, but everything that moves, your backpack, chairs, and all that, 2030 onwards, you leave the room, all the chairs are going to organize themselves, backpack will follow you. It's just the natural, inevitable future that is coming, that things are going to move, and moving was the missing piece. And I think the bringing AI to the physical world is going to basically redefine how we live in a massive way. And maybe the hot take there is bringing the success from ChatGPT and what we have seen in word and language, I think, directly to the physical world. We strongly believe at Field AI, have seen it in the field, would not work. And you would require new architectures. And that's going to be, I think, we'll be redefining a lot of what we are going to see in AI, new types of, not transformers anymore, things that are going to be the new nature, but for the physical world. And I think it's going to be a very interesting world where we see like which companies will hit the first 10,000 robot deployments that are operating with foundation models, meaning that they're generalizable across the tasks that they're doing. And yeah, pretty exciting next few years.
Just by complete coincidence, everyone's hot take reinforces our thesis as well.
Yeah, but I love that. I just can't wait for the time when my backpack and my suitcase follow me through the airport. Everybody's doing that. Well, thank you all for joining us today, and thank you everyone for joining us here for the session. And I really enjoyed it, and now we're on to the rest of the show. So thank you very much.
Thank you.